Have you ever asked yourself what it means to be a rocker and what it takes to be a rock star? To be a true rocker, in my opinion, means you're part of a subculture of musicians, artists and opinionated people that mainly express themselves through the medium of rock and roll. Whether that be through performance, listening or inspiration of the genre, supporting your favourite band, dressing the part and wearing the garb that goes along with it all, ultimately it's community, individuality, self-expression and artistry. Throughout every aspect, it provides a unique type of strength, power and rebellion that most types of musical culture typically wouldn't. Because music is something that is constantly evolving, our culture does the same. It is full of unique, interesting and talented people, which is why we have different types of rockers who represent their love for the different genres of music within the culture itself. Thrash, hard rock, grunge, glam metal, AOR, emo, punk, goth, the list goes on. Depending on how you look at it, some subgenres belong in here and some don't, which is why it can be confusing for anyone from the outside looking in, but 9 times out of 10, a lot of these groups will consider themselves within our community. But to be a rock star is something slightly different. When you're put into that position, you become someone's idol, you become somebody's strength, you inspire others through everything that you are, everything that you say and everything that you do. The lyrics you write must be important, and your message, whatever that may be, must reign true. For me, a true rock star must look like a larger-than-life character. After all, if they're going to be my hero, I want them to look like it, which is why I probably gravitate to a lot of artists in the glam metal, hard rock and arena-orientated rock categories of music, because they look beautiful, tough and sometimes otherworldly. They usually never fail to grab my attention through their music. Artists like these have never failed to reach me on a personal level. Unfortunately, most artists in these genres usually end up changing with the times, adapting to what's popular, toning down their image and their once electrifying music, and ultimately end up compromising their artistic integrity in the process, in the hopes that they will stay relevant and maintain a lasting career. Now that's not to say that one can't grow and mature naturally as an artist, but in a lot of cases, especially in the 90s, a lot of bands changed their music and their look in response to the music that was coming out of Seattle in America. The grunge movement shook the music industry to its core, breaking the cookie cutter mold of what made a rock star. But Robby Valentine seems to be the exception to that rule. Throughout his career, he has continued to be uncompromisingly original, and in my opinion, fits the criteria of what it means to be a true rock star and a true rocker, despite not getting the level of recognition he deserves. Even if this video only gets a few views, I think the world needs to know about this amazing artist. Guys, if you want to support the channel and my work, make sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to leave a comment, as this will help boost this video in the algorithm. So without further ado, this is Discovering Robby Valentine. Robby Valentine, aka Robert Kemp, is a multi-instrumentalist singer-songwriter from Leusden in the Netherlands. Growing up, he was heavily inspired by the likes of David Bowie, John Waite and Queen, and these influences can be heard throughout most of his music. Robbie has had a lengthy career spanning over a near 3 decades, performing on multiple albums with multiple bands. He is a hidden gem to a majority of the world, but a hugely successful star in both the Netherlands and Japan. The type of music Robby Valentine specialises in is AOR type music. For those who aren't familiar with AOR and what it is, AOR stands for Arena Orientated Rock. Arena Orientated Rock in a nutshell is rock music that has been specially designed to be performed in arenas. Everything from a band's looks to the music they play and even the album art is fine-tuned to an above average industry standard. Although there are bands like Aerosmith, Foo Fighters and Green Day who have an arena selling status, they wouldn't technically count as an AOR band, as it's become a specific genre. Most rock songs, no matter the subgenre, usually have 2, sometimes 3 verses and a chorus, and room for a guitar solo. AOR has this as well, but places a strong emphasis on melody and anthemic choruses. A distinct characteristic of the AOR sound is its prominent guitar harmonies, effects and keyboards. A perfect example of the AOR sound can be found on albums like TNT's Intuition, Strange Ways, Walk in the Fire, Stage Doll's self-titled release, and of course Michael Bolton's album Everybody's Crazy. Have a listen to those albums and you'll get what I mean. Throughout Robbie's career, he has fought a long and hard uphill battle to keep the genre alive throughout the 90s, the 2000s and beyond. Starting out his professional career in the band Lion as their keyboard player, Lion would go on to produce 2 EPs in 1986. Here we can see a young Robbie with short hair performing with Lion on a show called Top Pop. Robbie would eventually quit Lion and go on to form the band First Avenue in 1987. First Avenue wouldn't end up releasing their first official album until long after Robbie had departed the group, but most of the songs on First Avenue's 1992 debut were written and composed by Robbie. In 1990, Robbie would go on to join the AOR band Sinatra as their keyboard player. During that same year, Robbie would also sign a solo record deal with major record label giants Polydor, and would eventually go solo with his own band, Valentine. Discovering Robbie has been such an enjoyable experience. His music, his uniqueness and level of talent is simply put on another level. I see a lot of similarities between myself and his stage persona, and I'd love to be able to sit here and tell you that I've been a fan for years, but the honest truth is, I've only recently discovered Robbie. One quiet evening, not so long ago, I decided to explore some new music, hoping to stumble upon a hidden gem of some sort, when YouTube suggested me a song called Love Takes Me Higher by Robby Valentine. It was a live performance, playback style and a top of the pops type show. I was immediately hooked. The song was poppy and fun. He had the look and he had an array of moves to go along with it. It put a big smile on my face. He was jumping off the stage ramp and giving it shed loads of effortless hair tossles and endless pouts for days. It was a very entertaining and uplifting performance. But what really done it for me was the effortless move to the keyboard as he commanded both the audience and the camera while simultaneously playing the keys without looking and singing to the crowd. This guy's charisma was off the charts. Whether that performance was playback or not, he left an impression on me, which led me down a path of discovering one of the best musicians I've ever come across. But something didn't look right. This video was dated 1992, but it looked like it came straight out of 1985. That couldn't be right, I thought to myself. Most glam bands were on their way out by this point, and this guy had just released a new album. The timing really couldn't have been worse. In 1992, grunge was at its peak in popularity, and just about every artist in that genre had dropped an album that year. Most notably Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, Nirvana, L7, Sonic Youth, and even though they're not a grunge band I feel they're important to mention, Fate No More. It was also the year that the movie Singles was released. Singles was a romantic comedy that surrounded the lives of a group of young people, sharing their stories of their relationships and romantic endeavours, and the reason I mention it is because it was shot in Seattle and it had a never-ending list of cameos from the grunge scene. Everybody from Alice in Chains to the boys out of Pearl Jam and Soundgarden made an appearance in this film. Same with the soundtrack. Grunge was literally everywhere, as was this film. Singles ended up being a huge success, grossing almost double its original budget. So in one part of the world you had all that going on, and in another was the uncompromisable Robby Valentine, still rocking the glam metal look and promoting an AOR type record. Unfortunately, it wasn't going to have a snowball's chance in hell of breaking the American market, but it was cool to see that there was still one lad in the genre that was still going strong with a fan base that supported his music. Digging in further, I discovered his big hit, Over and Over Again. Released in 1991, a year before his debut album dropped, Over and Over Again is your typical 80s rock type ballad paired with a typical 80s rock type ballad video. I'm not gonna lie, it's as cliche as it gets, but at the same time it's a damn good cliche song and video, and the song ended up being a chart success in the Netherlands. I suppose this might be the point where most people might write him off as just another glam singer doing the same as the rest of the other bands in that category, but I just had a feeling about this guy. I mean, look at him. He's playing a piano, he's got a great voice, and he looks cool. There just had to be more to this guy. I needed to see what this guy was really made of, so I kept digging and eventually discovered the music video for Where Do We Go From Here, and suddenly it all made sense. His 1995 release Where Do We Go From Here is a song about how everything in the world has gone wrong. The lyrics give mention to greed, war and a loss of humanity. It's been weighing heavy on us all, and the solution is repentance and a belief in God. It's a Christian song and a damn good one at that. The piano work, his soft angelic voice and his songwriting overall was a message I could understand and relate to. The video itself is simple but effective. The A roll is of Robbie playing the piano. The B roll is shots of himself and the band in the background of what looks like a derelict building. and the C-roll is various scenes of flames and destruction. This song and video solidified in my mind that Robbie's talents lay far above the average frontman. After this, I thought it was about time I checked out some of his albums, and to my surprise, there was a lot of them. Throughout the 90s alone, he released 5 studio albums with his band. It was time to dig in and go from the very beginning, and check out whatever I could get my hands on. First up is Robbie's debut album, simply titled Robby Valentine. Robby Valentine's debut is a beautifully arranged 13-track AOR type record, 17 if you count the bonus tracks. It's got some amazing songs that in my opinion far outclass his hit single over and over again. Some of my favourite tracks in this album are The Gift of Life, Love Takes Me Higher and Broken Dreams. The Gift of Life really showcases Robbie's talents and really proves that he is more than just a one-hit wonder. The level of talent on this track is high. It sounds like it belongs on a Disney soundtrack. The keys and the Queen-esque harmonies really make this song jump out at you. It's such a well put together song. The album version of Love Takes Me Higher opens with a harmony that again is very reminiscent of Queen, and again is a very fun pop type tune. Broken Dreams is a kick-ass track with a killer opening riff. It has a real 80s sound to it with a background synth that sounds like some sort of rock and roll engine. There is a kick-ass solo in the middle of the song and a bass breakdown that has absolutely no business being as epic as it is. What a tune. His debut album I think has something for everybody. It's got hard rock songs, it's got ballads, and it's got fun poppy love songs. It's a solid all-rounder. The album's front cover, although dated by this point, is still really cool, and I wouldn't think twice about picking it up in any decade. Up next was The Magic Infinity. The Magic Infinity is Robbie's second album release. Released in 1993, it's one hell of a follow-up to his debut. Robbie goes hard on this one, showing us the true power of what AOR is all about, with 15 tracks of perfection, 17 if you count the bonus tracks. My favourite tracks on this album are The Magic Infinity, No Turning Back and Wild Child. The Magic Infinity is a powerful opening track, both lyrically and musically. The start of the song hits like a cannon, delivering us a hard dose of truth, his truth, all about the people that got in his way and tried to blacken his name and twist his words around. But it also tells the story of how he overcame this through the magic of infinity, which I think represents one's own inner strength, because that stuff is limitless. No Turning Back. This song is similar in tone to The Magic Infinity, only it's more direct, telling us the story of how his one true love and his friends betrayed his trust, and how he's managed to overcome those painful experiences. It's got a real theatrical Queen vibe to it. This song may as well have been about me, because at one point in my life, word for word, this literally happened to me. This and The Magic Infinity are two very relatable songs that spoke to me on a very personal level, which besides how well put together they are, is probably why I love them so much. If you're looking for 80s sounding ballads, this album has you covered. It's got plenty. Wild Child, I Need Your Love and Help Me Spell My Name are my favourite ballads on this album. They are beautifully arranged love songs. This album as a whole is so much more than an AOR record. It's something closer to sounding like a Broadway musical. I suppose my only criticism is that although the front cover is a cool photo of the band, it just doesn't jump out at me like the debut. And if you were solely judging it by its cover in a music shop, you would never suspect it was as great as it is. While his debut album has something for everyone, I feel this album far outclasses his debut. The sophomore slump is nowhere to be found here. This is a quality album. Up next was his third release. Released in 1995, Robbie drops his first name, titling his third release simply as Valentine or Valentine 1. Up until this point he was using his full title on his albums in what I assume was to prevent confusion and legal trouble with the American band Valentine, who were also an AOR type band. As far as musicianship goes, this album is a masterpiece from start to finish. It's also one of his more elusive titles. The album reflects on Valentine's personal and emotional struggles as he sings about love, loss and fate. Just like the previous albums, there are catchy melodies, complex harmonies and diverse arrangements. My favourite tracks on this album are Remy, Take My Hand, Just for Fun and Where Do We Go From Here. Remy, this piece really moved me. Remy is a piano instrumental with an accompaniment of other instruments throughout. It conveys to me such heavy emotion and passion. The really great thing about this piece is that I think anyone could listen to it and find some sense of relatability to it. Take My Hand is another song that really took me by surprise. It opens with this beautiful piano solo that transitions with this Queen-esque harmony to this rap, almost theatrical Michael Jackson-esque vocal. It has an absolute belter of a solo as well. It's so bizarrely amazing that I found myself listening to it over and over again. Just for Fun is an 80s style rocked up love song with strong replay value. As I mentioned earlier, Where Do We Go From Here is a beautiful song. The piano, the angelic voice, the harmonies, its catchy lyrics and killer solo are amazing, but the album's extended version is so much better. This album for me is on par with the second. It's just so good and arguably better than the second depending on which mood I'm in. I love everything about this album. Unfortunately, despite this album being amazing, it ended up being a failure commercially. It failed to produce any chart success at all, and as a result, Polydor made the decision to terminate Robbie's European contract. As to why it failed, I can only speculate that its competition was far too tough. The musical landscape of 1995 was awash with grunge, boy bands, hip hop and Britpop acts. The most popular albums of that year in my opinion were Oasis with their album What's the Story Morning Glory, Smashing Pumpkins with their album Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, Alanis Morissette with her album Jagged Little Pill, Tupac with Me Against the World and Mariah Carey's Daydream. Now, as much as I love the album cover, stacking it up next to all of these other 1995 top selling releases, Valentine's album cover looks extremely dated in comparison, doesn't it? It doesn't look like an album that wants or is ready to compete in a mainstream market, and with the Spice Girls only around the corner, AOR type music in general just wasn't going to be able to compete in a market like this, as it was going out of fashion. But let's make it a level playing field and stack it up against some other AOR records from that year. Even against those records, the cover seems dated. At the end of the day, record companies 9 times out of 10 care more about how much money an artist can generate rather than keeping decent music alive. It's sad, but it's what it is. However, in the Japanese markets, artists like Robbie were still popular, which is more than likely the reason he got to keep his Japanese contract. All of his future releases from this point forward would be released in that territory only. Valentine is unfortunately only available through YouTube and the Japanese video site Nico. Not every album is available on Spotify or iTunes, more than likely due to copyright and label issues, and none of the collectors I knew had an original copy. I hope in the future this issue is resolved so it can reach the audience it truly deserves. The follow-up to Valentine, Valentine 4 United, was released in 1997 to a Japanese audience only. Compared to the back catalogue, it kinda falls short for me for a number of reasons. I imagine after the commercial failure of his last release, Robbie was probably under a lot of pressure to deliver on this album so as not to lose his Japanese contract with Polydor. And I think this may have affected his songwriting and his art more than he himself may have realised. Now, I'm not saying Robbie copied anyone deliberately, however I do think it happened psychologically. I think whatever he was listening to at the time came out in his own music. For example, the song Don't Tell Me sounds like a rip-off of Nick Kershaw's song Wouldn't It Be Good. In fact, if you put the front cover of Valentine 4 next to Kershaw's Human Racing album, they are strikingly similar. Both artists are posing in a similar fashion behind a dark background. While Nick is looking directly at you, Robbie is looking away. Yes, Nick's background is black and Robbie's is a picture of the earth with 2 pianos adorned with angel wings. Both are different but at the same time extremely similar and at a glance look almost identical. Another song that's extremely similar to another is Black and White. Straight up it sounds like Meatloaf's I Would Do Anything for Love. Again, not a copy but very, very similar and not in a way that comes across as paying homage or inspired by. I guess Robbie and the label thought it would be a good idea to do a Christmas song. After all, those do very well as they always get heavy rotation on radio stations all around the world at Christmas time. But apart from listening to it on this album, I've not heard it anywhere else. And it's a shame because Christmas in Heaven, as it is titled, is a really good Christmas song. The hit single off this album is called I Believe in Music. The opening lyrics of I Believe in Music is Robbie laying his cards on the table for us all to see. In this desperate time I don't belong, but my dream lives on. It's all I ever know. The ground I built upon is dead and gone, though my will is strong. I'm lost without a home. What I think he's trying to tell us with these lyrics is that Robbie belongs in the 80s, when AOR was popular. It's the foundation he built his musical career on, and it's slipping away, but he isn't giving up because he believes in the music he plays. It's a beautiful song with a rock and roll attitude. Nobody's moving Robbie off his spot. No matter what happens, he's staying true to himself and what he believes in. I believe that this song was about his circumstances at the time with the label and the musical climate he found himself in. There was a music video made for this track, and I completely understand why he chose this song to be his music video. This was his message and the hill he was willing to die on. I Believe in Music is a great song and the music video is brilliant. And as one commenter put it, the piano solo is nothing but an exquisite touch of virtuosism and good taste. But for me, it's the message he's conveying that really earns its replay value. The music video is enjoyable. Himself and the band are beautifully shot, but despite this, I really think the music video should have gone to the song Power Above, as I feel Power Above's sound feels like it would fit more with a Japanese audience, with its arcade type sound effects. It kind of reminds me of that whole culture of anime, video games and visual key type music. Valentine 4 United is not a bad album by any stretch. It's actually quite good, but I feel it's a result of the circumstances Robbie found himself in, and because of this I feel it's nowhere near the level of the back catalogue releases. I feel as though the loss of the European contract had an effect on Robbie's work, and as a result this 16 track record paid the price. Despite Don't Tell Me and Black and White sounding like other songs, they are my favourites of this album. Those two and The Power Above are the winners on this album for me. His next release, No Sugar Added, is an AOR album with a modern pop twist. It's still got Robbie's signature sound, synths and harmonies, while at the same time feeling fresh, with other songs leaning more on the commercial pop side. Much like the first album, it's got something for everybody, but I feel conflicted about this one because on one hand, it's got all that good stuff I mentioned, but on the other hand, the tracks are such a mixed bag that it makes me wonder if most of the tracks are just leftovers thrown in from his previous works along with a few new tracks to flesh it out into an album. Especially when you take into account that the Sulky Shuffle is a bonus track from the Magic Infinity, and that songs like It's All About sound widely different from songs like Back to Mars. It makes you wonder. As great as most of the tracks are, I feel like this album as a whole lacks a certain structure because of this. Also, who exactly was this album meant to be marketed for? It's really anyone's guess. Its front cover looks like a tribute to Andy Warhol's Sarah Girl painting, which I guess is a cool nod, but to the untrained eye, it sort of looks like Victoria Beckham joined Placebo. Its dark background and purple tones throw me a bit because it looks like it belongs in the goth rock music end of the shop, when in reality the album is a poppy AOR type record. But despite this, it has some really good songs. My favourites are Combat, It's All About and Never Too Late. Combat is a theatrical song about war that sounds like it belongs in a Disney movie. Although its subject is grim, it's strangely beautiful. It's All About stands in stark contrast to most of the songs on the album. It sounds for its time like a super modern, radio friendly song that leads backwards into an AOR type song. It's really odd but also interesting. Its sexually charged lyrics combined with a sound that's somewhat reminiscent of groups like Savage Garden, in my opinion, would have made this song perfect for mainstream radio. I also think Reincarnated Virtually would have been perfect for radio as well, as it sounds fresh and new. This one also reminds me of Savage Garden, especially their song I Want You. Never Too Late is an 80s synth heavy song with a catchy beat and powerful vocal performance. However, the lyrics tell the story of a girl who's lived through and died of cancer. Sad yet exciting. No Sugar Added is a mixed bag. It's odd, it's unusual, but overall has some brilliant songs. His 2001 release, Seeing is Believing, is a vast improvement over the last. The front cover is so simple, yet it looks so fresh. Its logo jumps straight out at you. This would definitely catch my attention. This album looks like it was ready to compete in a mainstream market. It's amazing. This 12-track album is everything you'd want and more from a modern sound and Robby Valentine record. There are so many melodic tracks on this album, but if I had to pick my favourites, they would have to be What in the World I'm Waiting For, Fear of Heights, Make Way for the Messenger and A New Tomorrow. They've all got Robbie's signature sound and passion, but in a strange way, sound like they belong in both the 80s and the 2000s simultaneously. He's managed to strike the right balance with this album. And this is where I'm going to leave this documentary. In the next one, I'll be covering the rest of Robbie's career throughout the rest of the 2000s and beyond. I realise there are albums in his discography that I haven't covered. Unfortunately, I don't have access to them just yet, but I hope to cover them in future videos. The reason I made this documentary is because I want the world to know just how amazing this artist is. Robby Valentine is uncompromisingly original. Despite pressures from his band and his label to cut his hair short and change his style of music, he stayed true to himself and his music and helped to keep AOR and the glam metal style alive. Even though it came at a huge cost to him, he remained a true original. He is the embodiment of what it is to be a true rocker and a true rock star, and a true musician. In my opinion, he is one of the greatest musicians of our time, and Polydor didn't know or care to know just what a gem they really had. They really should have done more for him. If there was room for unusual artists like Steve Vai to survive and thrive throughout the 90s and 90s, surely Polydor could have given Robbie the same level of respect and opportunities to do the same, and not try to change him or pigeonhole his career to just one territory. Robbie deserves to have a far more broader audience, and I hope whoever ends up watching this video comes away a new fan. His new album, Embrace the Unknown, is due to be released soon, and I can't wait to hear it. Guys, thank you so much for watching this documentary. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give the video a like and leave a comment and let me know what you think yourself. This has been Discovering Robby Valentine by Richie Kearns Productions. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.